And we're back with another daily reflection on the Daily Vedantic. This one is on one of the most personal topics you could ever discuss: identification and identity. And I was thinking earlier today about one of my favorite essays I've ever read. This great startup thinker that happens to also be philosopher and brilliant writer, Paul Graham, maybe the best startup investor ever. He invested in my company when I was 26, 25, and I got to know him and got to know all of his writings. In fact, I wanted him to invest because of all of his writings. He started this incubator program called Y Combinator that it has launched some of the best companies in the world: Airbnb, Dropbox, Reddit, a lot of the best ones in the last 10, 15 years. But he happens to write these beautiful essays on life, a little bit about startup investing, startup building, here and there for sure. But I always loved his essays on life. And one of his best essays, in my opinion, is titled, "Keep Your Identity Small." It talked about how when we identify with a bunch of sports teams, identify with some denomination within a religion, he also talked about programming languages. For those that don't know, within the technical space, especially within Silicon Valley, it can become quite violent to start rooting for one programming language over another. And Paul Graham is a hell of a programmer. So this was relevant to that essay, relevant to the audience. But the synopsis of the essay was that in a world that can try to enchant you to identifying with everything around you, I can tell you, join our group. Be a part of our group. The essay talked about the inherent cost in identifying with those groups. When you're a Python programmer, when you're Roman Catholic, when you are a Republican, or when you are a Cowboys fan. All of these things are so limiting. You get the initial upside of a community for certain, but it comes with this infinite downside of your identity. You are now being attacked when someone says something about the Dallas Cowboys, or when they aren't winning, or when your political party doesn't look like it'll win. When your programming language isn't evolving as fast as others, when it's in jeopardy of losing its stature, the agitation we sign ourselves up for because these seemingly innocuous placements of our identity in the world around us. And his argument was, keep your identity small. Just be a programmer. Don't be a Python programmer. Be a football fan, not a specific team. Be an advocate for the progress of your country, state, or city, not aligned and identified with some political party that wants you to identify with them, that benefits when you do that. But you might not necessarily benefit from that. This is such a powerful essay. It was a powerful essay for me because I was just signing myself up for all of these different identifications that were always in jeopardy. They were always being attacked. Within this philosophy, we're told that you come to self-realization through the affirmative or the negative, and through negation or affirmation. And you actually can, in parallel, intertwine the two through affirming that you are much more than what you might think you are. The great phrase that we mentioned last episode, tattvam asi, that thou art. You're it, as Alan Watts would colloquially say. You're that which is. That's what this philosophy has said for 8,000, 10,000 years. Who knows how long the oral tradition of this philosophy has been going. The written tradition, in 2016, there was a part of the Rig Veda that was dated back to 6,000 BC. 8,000 years this concept has been put forward of you are that which is, that thou art. That's the affirmation, the affirmative. That's the opposite of what Paul Graham's saying. Don't keep your identity small. Go friggin' big with it. You're a fan of all NFL teams, all sports teams, all programming languages. Not only every political party, but every politician. You can find identification with them all. Just like you could look at someone that might be the most stressful person that you work with. But you can cultivate the ability to identify with, okay, what are they going through that's causing it? Maybe they're going through a divorce right now that's making them just really difficult to work with. Maybe my favorite definition of evil, since there is no real concept of evil in Vedanta, is goodness bereft of a guide. They just might not have the right guides or the guides that you have been fortunate enough to have. That's the affirmation. The negation perspective, that is very much in the line of what Paul Graham is saying. Not just keep your identity small, but negate, whittle away at that identity until it's nothing. I am not a fan of a programming language. I am not just a fan of a sports team. I am not just a cog in some manipulative political machination. I'm not these things. I'm not even my body. It is just a vehicle carrying me around. I'm not my mind, because I can observe what my mind is doing. Therefore, the I in me is separate from these thoughts. I'm not my intellect, the part of you that is discerning what to do in a given situation. That's judging, deciding in the midst of various preferences that your mind is presenting forth. You can walk that back to where you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your intellect. All the way back to where there is no articulation, because there is no identification with just one part of the universe. There is a totality, an identification with all of it. Therefore, a partial identification is not you. That is paradoxical to take both the affirmation and the negation. Neti neti is the phrase in Sanskrit. Not this, not this. You can negate all the way to just pure isness, which negates through language itself. Or you can affirm positively through the totality. You are all of it, until language fails there as well. Or it's a mix between the two. Constantly. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. I am not my body that's experiencing this pain, and I am so much more than just this body that will have, as it said in the Gita, that will have its window and will be taken off like an old garment. But this essay from Paul is so brilliant in that it just makes us question, pushes us, provokes us to assess constantly where we're giving our identification to. And if I were to add a Vedantic influence to this essay, if the great sages throughout time were editing it, they'd probably say, keep your identity infinite, or keep your identity infinitesimal. But whatever you do, don't get caught in between. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Daily Vedantic. This reflection is part of a free repeating 2-year course in Advaita Vedanta. Rooted in the timeless wisdom of the Upanishads, arguably the oldest philosophical texts on earth, you can begin with episode 1, which gives the 15-minute overview of the whole philosophy of Vedanta, or you can join the journey with any episode at any point. But the critical aspect of this course of understanding and mastering anything is to study and reflect, even for 10 to 15 minutes on the timeless each day, preferably at the start of your day. As is said in this philosophy, reflection is 100,000 times as powerful as listening. So listen, journal, sit with, discuss these concepts, or ask questions at thedailyvedantic.com with our AI-powered chatbot informed by about 700 episodes here, as regularly as one can if you want to see clarity and peace almost effortlessly unfold in your daily life. And if it doesn't result in a near immediate increase in clarity and peace, then toss aside and feel free to never listen again. One of the things that you might notice is after 7 or 8 days in a row, this doesn't feel like a discipline. This feels like a visit with a best friend to dive into the timeless with daily reflection. Within a few days, it becomes one of your favorite parts of the day. You can also find out more, including news about in-person events in Los Angeles and beyond, at the Daily Vedantic on Instagram or through our weekly newsletter at thedailyvedantic.com. Additionally, check out the links in our show notes for more resources like the books that are mentioned most frequently in the episodes, including Vedanta Treatise, perhaps the simplest and most straightforward read on this philosophy I've ever come across. Until next time, and from the entire team that works on the Daily Vedantic project, thanks for listening.